management is one of those topics that people can get really excited about, but it's also one of those topics that offers this really interesting dichotomy. You see, some people can take the simplest of things, the most straightforward of ideas, and make it really, really complicated. Other people prefer a very straightforward approach, very simple, very logically driven, and almost spare, stripped down, you might say. Which is the better one? Well, it depends to a great extent on the circumstances of your project. Some projects do call for a really robust and rigorous risk approach. Think of those things that could affect, the potential loss of life or limb. Those kinds of things. They absolutely do require a more rigorous approach to risk management. That being said, it can still be fairly straightforward. Let's take it on the surface of it. The definition of a risk is that it's an uncertain event. And if it happens, it could affect the project, either good or bad. It doesn't matter. It could affect the project. But there are some risks that we can do nothing about, and nobody can predict. I mean, I'm saying that having grown up in a part of the country where the ground beneath our feet would move without anybody's forewarning or permission. That can kind of change your perspective about certain kinds of risks because you cannot do anything about it. But what you can do is you can manage the impact that risk has, should it happen. And do something to mitigate the pain a little bit. Those are almost the easiest risks to deal with. It's the ones in between, even if it happens, I don't really care because it's not going to have that much of an impact. We can deal with it if it actually does happen. Between that and, what are you, crazy? I haven't been able to find anybody who can reliably tell Mother Nature what to do. There's some things that are just out of our control. And I agree. But it's that middle ground that sometimes gets a little bit overcomplicated. And I get it. Especially when you're working with a lot of professionals who were actually trained, educated, and encouraged and rewarded to solve problems in a way that is as complete as possible. Sometimes all you want to do is get that risk down to a more manageable size. So, let's try to keep it a little simple, okay? 1, make sure that everybody actually understands that risk management is not going to be a fire drill that results in absolutely nothing happening that's going to benefit the project. I know, this may sound like I suddenly shifted from risk management to communications management. No, not really. Because one of the greatest risks that you don't want to have to deal with is the impression that the leadership team or any of your other key stakeholders might get that you're wasting your time and their money. We don't want that one. So make sure that people see the results that simple, straightforward risk management can deliver for the client, can deliver towards the project, and in the spirit of understanding interdependencies for the whole performing organization. Okay? And you may say, well, how am I going to do that? I mean, your suggestion is to make sure people see the benefit. How exactly am I going to do that? Make the discussion of the risks that you've mitigated just as much a part of the status reports to your leadership team as any other metrics. What is the trouble that your team has gone to assure that harm is being prevented? What are some of these small but still possible opportunities have we identified, and we're going to keep an eye out for them on your behalf? This does not require any kind of special genius to figure out. People don't automatically know the connection between what they get in value to what you did to deliver that value. You need to articulate it for them. Oh, this is, by the way, not a comment on anybody's intelligence. It's a comment on everybody's attention span. You can't keep track of everything, and you can't pay attention to everything. So, come on, make life a little bit easier for these folks. Okay? So that's number one. Number two, try to make it as trouble-free as possible for your team to be able to let you know that things may have popped up. Is it onerous to keep a risk register? Well, it's not my most, favorite activity as a project manager, but I gotta tell you, it's worth it. Plus, a risk register gives you the input that you need in order to create a risk burn down chart. And we'll be talking, that's another video. Anyway, make it as trouble-free as possible. Okay? If they identify something, ask them to let you know. Email? Okay. Instant message? Probably not a bad idea. Slack? Also not a bad idea. Any kind of collaboration tool like that will be useful. And ask them simply for just 3 pieces of information. 1, what is the actual risk that caused you to think about it? 2, what do you think the probability is? And 3, if it happens, how big, how little potential impact? Okay. The risk event, their take on probability and impact. One of the things that you would probably find useful is to make sure that they understand that you're not playing to hold their feet to the fire if their assessments / estimates / educated guesses about the probability and impact are not spot on. They're not supposed to be. They're estimates, for heaven's sakes. And yes, that is another video too. All right, so what have we got so far? Well, 1, make sure that we communicate very clearly what the value is of doing a simple, straightforward risk management approach. 2, make it as simple and easy, as trouble-free as possible for your team members to help you with the identification and at least the preliminary assessment by only asking for a very few pieces of information. And 3 is catch people doing it without your having to ask them. And make sure that they understand just how much you appreciate the trouble that they're going to, because the trouble that they're going to is a signal of the commitment they have to the project. Get everybody identifying risks. Make it as simple as possible to report them so that you can get them into the risk register and start making some decisions, some prioritizations about whether or not they need to be addressed, or maybe they just need to be on a watch list. That's fine too. And then last but not least, catch people doing it well, doing it right. When people extend themselves and they demonstrate a commitment to your project by exerting the energy to do this kind of thing, well, it's a great sign of their energy, their commitment to the project and to the performing organization, and that's not a bad thing. Risk management can be referred to as just practically a philosophical awakening or experience for some people, and for others it's simply the commonsensical way that you go about doing things on a day-to-day basis. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Your job as a project manager, though, your job as a leader of a project team, is to make a solid assessment about just how complicated it really has to be as you execute each and every project with each specific team. So, if you've got a choice, try keeping it simple. You know, at Leadership Driven Project Management Academy, we work with some fundamental success parameters, and I will admit, risk management is one of them, but that's not the only reason that I find risk management to be such a compelling topic. You see, risk management is not just about numbers and percentages and dollars. It's also about people. It's about the environment in which you're trying to build a team that can perform just a little bit better than they used to, that collaborate more clearly and more strongly. And in that spirit of collaboration, also enhance the level of positive impact on the interdependencies of all of the other efforts that are going on in your performing organization. And that is one of the biggest reasons that leadership-driven project management can be so transformative, because it starts and ends with the quality of the relationships you've established with the people. Your team, absolutely. Key stakeholders, yes. The leadership team, other professionals in your organization that manage other projects. Let's face it. I think we've all learned that globalization isn't something that happens to masses of people. Globalization is realizing that you have colleagues on every continent in a lot of time zones. Okay, sometimes seems like too many time zones. But you see, that is the strength of leadership-driven project management. It takes into account all of those relationships and builds your strengths based on those relationships. If you like this approach, please like, subscribe, forward to somebody. And when you find those tips that you think would be particularly useful to you, well, you know, let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear from you. My contact information is always at the end of the video, and I look forward to hearing from you. I'm KimiKSP. Thanks for joining us today.